Hello and welcome back to another episode of Strong Collectors Comics. I'm your host Jordan, joined by my plucky co-host Dakota. Now, in comic books, there are some characters that we get to spend a lot of time with over many, many issues. Some characters we don't really get to spend much time with at all. So today we're taking a look at some comic series that have characters who we think go on a little too long, or maybe which characters deserve a little bit more time in the spotlight. So this is the brainchild of Dakota. So I'm going to let Dakota, you take the lead on this one. I have some thoughts, some ideas, but I'd kind of like to hear from you which characters you feel like need adjustments between longer and shorter series.
Yeah, so my thought with this was I was watching Two Guys in a Stack of Comics. They were talking about some different characters, and I was I was thinking just like some of these characters that they were mentioning, I was like, I mean, I get that you're like, this was maybe a beloved character. It's a very classic character for sure. Like everybody knows them. But how good of a story can you continue to tell with some of these characters? Like, you know, when you have a team like Justice League, X-Men, Avengers, like it's very easy to swap out characters and you can make that last forever. Like you don't really ever have to stop telling that story. That could be issue 1 to 1,000 and you can just swap characters, new stories, new villains, whatever. But when you have, I think it's more challenging with solo characters where, like, I'll use Iron Man because I don't think he's an example of somebody that can't hold a long story. But, like, just a solo Iron Man story is going to be a little bit more challenging because you have one person that has to be the main character for all the books forever. And like I said, I think Iron Man can carry his weight. He can be an ongoing story. And kind of our ongoing is a little bit loose here because I'm imagining something that's got to be able to fit a compendium. Like, it's got to be 50 issues. If you can't tell a good story for 50 issues, then you shouldn't be. Like, you could totally tell really good stories.
So that's like the litmus for what you need to be able to reach for the character.
Right. Like, you could have amazing smaller stories. Like, it's still, maybe it could run 2 years and maybe that counts as ongoing. But I consider that a little bit more like mini-ish series. Like, it's not a 4-issue thing, but like something that's just going to be like, oh, I can read this in a couple volumes and that's the end of the story. So the first one that I thought of for that is the Punisher. Again, maybe because he's had ongoing stories, he's become a well-known character and everything. It's more of like he could, but now he can't. Because for me, I'm like, okay, I'm going to read a Punisher story. And like I said, you could read a really good couple volumes of Punisher. But at some point, I bet you Frank Castle's going to go and he's going to shoot the bad guys. And how much am I going to be able to read that? But it's just kind of, it's like, this is it's too predictable. Like, obviously, Batman's always going to beat the Joker, but they tell those stories in ways that can make them interesting enough to continue.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some sort of, like, military operation type of but that's what I'm saying is, like, give me a couple of volumes and I'm probably going to be satisfied with my Punisher reading. I don't need to read that for an entire compendium or multiple compendiums. I think he's just a little too the same.
Yeah, I think the trouble with a guy like Punisher, like you said, is even if he has a bad guy, right, his goal is to kill him. So it's like either the guy's going to keep evading him or he's trying to kill him, but there's no, I'm going to catch you, put you in jail, or, you know, whatever. It's just like he's going to kill whoever he meets, which does make it hard to have a long-standing rogues gallery. I don't know how Jigsaw's alive still. He's probably, I don't know.
Well,
He's
probably just keeps coming back to life or something. And it's like, even if he kills his main villain, he's going to be resurrected or it was a clone or a side, and it's just going to keep coming back. And it's like,
yeah. I think they tried to do some more nuance with that recently, right, with him like becoming the leader of the Hand. And I think you almost have to evolve the character to make him longer form. Because like you said, in his current form or typical form of I'm the guy, I go kill mobsters. You can do that for a bit, but I think you run out of road for story pretty quick.
And I read the story where he was leading the Hand, and I thought that was really good. I really liked that. It's probably one of my favorite Punisher stories. Like, there's other good ones where, you know, he's typical, just shoot up the mob. But this was, like you said, different, evolved. I was reading something new. Still Punisher with his same, you know, motives. He's trying to take out the bad guys. But it worked.
But they got to return him to status quo eventually, Dakota. You know, I could have read years and years of Frankencastle. I only got about 10 issues, so I could see ongoing. If he went back to Frankencastle, we'll keep him ongoing. But
I could see that.
I'm with you.
Yeah, and this won't be all like shouldn't be's. We're gonna mix in some things that we think should be ongoing. So
Should be.
maybe you'll have Frankencastle on there. I've got one that you're probably gonna. I mean, you don't shut up about this character, so I think you'll probably have them on your list. But
All right.
do you have one that you think should not be an ongoing story?
I guess in this, okay, I'm going to throw the Sentry out there. And I don't think he gets, like, he's had miniseries for himself. I think it was a mistake when they brought him in, personally. I know you love, well, at least in New Avengers, I think they used him a little bit better in, like, Dark Avengers. But I think he is kind of a character that exists better on his own in, like, shorter form. Because I think that is kind of the point, is how powerful he is, the whole conflict with the Void. Like, it seems like eventually what's happened with him is he just becomes the guy that just gets killed when you want to show another character is powerful.
True.
You know, like if you remember, like in King in Black, they just call in the Sentry and he just gets destroyed, and you're like, oh, okay, he's dead. But it's like, I think people don't know what to do with him in those contexts. So I think he's one that would have been best, I think, sticking to like his own little pocket, which I think those stories have worked. He's definitely one that I think doesn't mesh too well with like ongoing type stuff.
I'll switch you over to DC, and this hurts a little bit because I like the character, and I've read, like I said, I've read volumes and they were okay, but I don't think Hawkman can carry his own long-standing story. And like I don't maybe he's a little too like down the list of characters to be like, oh, okay, are we gonna say that like I don't know, just Demolition Man can't hold his own storyline? Maybe that's where he's not that far down the list.
What are you telling me? They should cancel Puck next?
Right. So maybe I'm a little off the beaten path there, but I just figured like since he had like the New 52, he got his own like storyline. I was like, I think that was a good try, and I'm really glad they did try.
Yeah.
But I think it's more of those like smaller stories that work for him.
Yeah, I could see that. I would have very little interest in anything longer form with Hawkman. In a similar vein to Punisher, maybe this is a hot take, but I'd say the same thing with Wolverine for a long form series.
Okay.
Personally, I think Wolverine works pretty well in like supporting appearances. I think he can have mini-series that I've liked, like Wolverine Enemy of the State was very good, Wolverine Old Man Logan. Different things like that I think work pretty well. I guess maybe to me it's a similar problem, though, to Punisher, where it's like when you mix him in that way, he is kind of more on that lethal, I'm going to kill somebody, like, bent. But maybe I'm also just get tired of the oversaturation of Wolverine.
Yeah.
And I think the less you see of him, the more interesting he is, because I think when you explore him too much, similar to Punisher, it's kind of like you retread the same ground to me over and over again sometimes.
I'm gonna stay in that same vein, and these aren't characters that I think shouldn't have ongoing series necessarily, but they need to chill out with them, and that's Spider-Man and Venom for those same reasons. Where it's Spider-Man, like you don't like anything Spider-Man happening right now, so like that, and that tells you something because Spider-Man is your favorite character, and he has been forever.
Right.
But there's, Amazing Spider-Man,
Spider-Man. Oh, except Ultimate Spider-Man.
True.
We can't besmirch Ultimate Spider-Man, but
Good
everything
point.
else,
but
cancel it.
I think if they would just condense down and they said, like, we're going to have a Spider-Man ongoing story and run with that, and then you can have those, like, offshoots of, like, a mini-series of Spider-Man something or another, or, like, multiverse type things, but don't tie it all together. Yeah. But just Spider-Man through line. You got your Ultimate Spider-Man, you got your miniseries, whatever. But I think there's just too many ongoing stories that it can't, like, I don't think Marvel itself can support that happening. And I think in the same way, Venom was cool. We talked about King in Black. It was cool, but I think we've lost the plot with Venom, and I just could not care less about Venom anymore. So I think we got to, like, end that so that you keep the character cool, because just because it's a cool character doesn't mean that we should give it an ongoing story, because I think that's kind of what happened with Venom was like, oh, this is a cool character, cool story, and now we're just trying to stretch that, like, milk that cash cow until it's dead, and they've long since killed that cash cow, and it needs to be put to rest.
Well, you're in luck, Dakota, because this year we're getting the Venomverse versus the Spider-Verse. So
that's exactly what I'm talking about.
It's everything you wanted.
It's a combination of everything I hate going on with Marvel right now. But
Yeah.
I think, I don't know. It's not like you can't tell those good stories. Like I said, it's just
Mm-hmm.
I think we're just trying to stretch those cool characters too thin. Where maybe this is a good
Yeah.
segue. We get into the characters
Mm-hmm.
that they should start taking a focus
Right.
on, and
Okay.
shine the spotlight on some of these lesser told stories.
I've got yeah.
What do you got for that?
I've got some in mind for that. If we're sticking with Marvel, I'm gonna hit you with saying I want a Beast solo series, and I think
interesting.
he could carry it. Maybe it's a hot take, taking the X-Men out of the team. I think I told you my pitch a while ago about like Beast founds a company, and it'd be like a company it's like a compound for scientific research. So he'd bring in all the monsters, all the monster scientists. You'd have Lizard there. Maybe there's like a reformed Mr. Sinister or something. You know, maybe I get the Legion of Monsters come there for safe
Yeah.
haven, and you can make him like he's because I think Beast could do like I think you could really build him to almost like a Tony Stark, Reed Richards type. Like he's like I'm going to start like this pro mutant research thing in
Yeah.
like a lab, and I think you could tell all kinds of fun stories there. You'd have some tragedy, you'd have some science, some wacky stuff gone amok. And I really don't like the whole Beast as a villain thing. So I need Beast to be a hero, and I think you could really give him a pretty cool storyline. And I think if you had the right writer, he could carry it.
All right,
So
I
I'm
like
going to
that.
throw that out there.
I didn't expect that, but I think that's a good idea. And you mentioned Mr. Sinister. I think you could probably pull off a similar type of long-standing story of Mr. Sinister. Like we could do
Okay.
kind of like go back, do Sinister, 100 years ago or whatever it is, and he's
Yeah.
kind of starting out as experiments, or you could do kind of a mix of like modern Sinister and then like there's flashbacks to those times, like just different like flashbacks of like because Sinister's had his hands in a lot of things, but I think you could flesh those things out because like he's nerfed Gambit before. We could go back to that type of
Right.
story, flesh it out a little bit more. I think now I just saw today that maybe Mr. Sinister he made Gambit in a test tube with Cyclops' DNA or something like that. I don't necessarily know if I need
Right.
that, but you could do those kind of like
Yeah.
experiments that he's done, his time in the Savage Land, his time like
Maybe
working with Professor X. If I don't know, I'm kind of thinking of like the cartoon, but like
Mm-hmm.
things like that I think you could tell a longer story. Again, maybe this isn't going to go on for 1,000 issues, but I think we could go for quite a while.
Yeah. What would he? Is he a villain in it though? You're going straight up. He's still a villain.
I think he's still like mostly a villain. I mean, maybe he like
Okay.
in those big threats, he maybe helps out the X-Men here and there, and it's kind of like that's where you're gonna like tie him into bigger events. But overall,
Maybe
he's
into
still
the
that
Beast
shady
solo
dude.
series.
Yeah, and there definitely could be some crossover there for sure. So
Yeah, I think that'd be cool because that's another thing that would be neat to see is more like villain centric. Like pick your strong villains and build a bigger story around them.
Yeah.
Because I do think there are characters you could probably do that with.
and I think they've tried to do that with like Magneto and stuff before too, but it's still your like it's more that like anti-hero Magneto where he's still saving the. I want to see something where it's like we're watching the villain be the villain. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking, like a straight up bad guy. I mean,
Yeah.
he does, he can have some redeeming elements, but for the most part, it's not like, he's too terribly sympathetic. So
Right.
I would read that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think now of more villain stories that would be cool.
I've got one for DC.
Oh,
It's
okay.
again still I think we're gonna still focus on the villain being the villain, and they've done this again similar to Hawkman where New 52 gave him a series, but I don't know that it lasted too long. But I would like to see more Deathstroke because I think
Okay.
Deathstroke is kind of the cool version of Deadpool, and Deadpool's in everything. He's got long-standing stories forever, miniseries. He's showing up everywhere. But I think Deathstroke is more that like serious character of like you can do the assassin stuff. You could have him, teaming up with the Legion of Doom or whatever, but still like focusing more on his story, like more solo. I think could be really cool because I've always loved Deathstroke as a character
okay.
too.
Yeah, I think there'd be a lot of material you could use with him. I mean, I don't think people would get tired of that. I think Deathstroke would be good. Now I'm dreaming up a Galactus series, Dakota. I want
Okay.
Galactus with Silver Surfer. Okay, it's like a buddy cop, right? It's like you used to be my Herald, and then for some reason they've got to team up, and they got to go into the cosmos, and we could go out into there. I think Silver Surfer is somebody that could. Maybe Galactus isn't the main guy.
I was
think
gonna say,
Silver
I think you're
Surfer would be
pitching
the
me
main
on a
guy.
really good miniseries, maybe a couple volumes. But could I get a whole compendium?
What if it's Silver Surfer, and then part of the arc is the Galactus team up? Would you buy that?
And I think I could see that a little bit more because, like you said, you could send Silver Surfer to any number of planets. He can stay on any number of those planets for an extended period of time, and then you kind of
maybe
always
he
have
just-
that overarching like, where's Galactus? Like you're always wanting Galactus is kind of that carrot that's getting you to keep reading.
Okay, Galactus has gone missing, and it's creating an imbalance in the universe because the planets aren't getting eaten.
Okay,
Bada bing.
interesting.
Maybe that's probably been done. But like Adam Warlock would show up. It'd just be like a cosmic adventure.
Yeah,
Maybe, something like that. I think I'd like to see
you might
a
be onto
character
something.
kind of like. Okay, if that doesn't tickle your fancy, a character I'd like to see more of. I'm gonna hit you with Dead Man. I
Yeah.
would read ongoing Dead Man stuff.
Okay.
I think you could build a pretty cool, like, kind of like what happened with Sandman, where you take kind of a simple character and you build more of like a lore, a mythology around him. To be quite honest, I don't know all the history of Deadman, but I feel like you could root that in history. Maybe there have been other
Sure.
Deadmans. Maybe where does that come from? I think you could build that out and then have them cross over with a lot more of the mystical side of the DC world, and maybe it's like a threat only he can face because he's Deadman, right? Other characters maybe can't go there.
Yeah.
But I'd read an ongoing Deadman series. I think.
Okay. I'll give you the one that I thought you would have on your list, and if we were talking
Oh,
action
okay.
figures, you would have. I think they could do an Elsa Bloodstone long-standing story because I've been
Oh,
trying to
okay.
find books with her to read, and they're pretty sparse.
Yeah.
It's like single issue here, she
true.
shows up here, but there's not like an Elsa Bloodstone series to really read. But I think
Yeah.
kind of like you're always wanting to pull in your Legion of Monsters. You have her going around the world hunting down monsters. Maybe she's curing some, maybe she's, capturing some. Like some are actually dangerous, some are just misunderstood.
Right.
I think that could
Oh yeah.
hold you over for quite a while.
Yeah, I'm all over that. I know they did like a 4-issue series of Legion of Monsters that had her in it, but again, like you said, that's not nearly enough for me. So,
Right.
if and my one request would be if we can set it in an alternate world where you
Oh.
know and I know Frankencastle is in it.
Okay.
Because I don't know how we could contrive getting him to go back to being Frankencastle. Maybe we could. We'd have to do some work. Frank, would you be cool with us turning you into a Frankenstein monster again? Please. We'll put a gear on your back. You'll have steam coming out of you and everything. No, I think that'd be great. I would totally buy that series and follow it.
Another one that both of us constantly are bringing up that I think is a shame that hasn't had a long story is The Question, because I don't even think that would be.
I do think he's had
that
some
hard.
longer books back in the day. I don't
Back
know
in
if
the
it's
day?
happened for a while, but I
Okay.
think there's some kind of more iconic runs. I think it might have been J.M. DeMatteis in like the 80s, but
Okay.
I don't think they've used him too much for a while.
I just
in, like,
imagine that
long
would be
form.
very like Sam and Twitch style murder mystery. Like you can have the more of the like down to earth. He's in New York City, or you send him around different cities if you really wanted to. But like trying to solve cases like that, because Sam and Twitch are my favorite part of the Spawn universe. So I think that would make sense to also have similar characters in the DC universe. That would also be really cool.
I'd like a question thing. I'd read a question series. I think going a little bit more epic. I've got one for Marvel and DC that I think they're both sleeping on. Dakota, I'm going to have to say Amethyst. I think Amethyst could be an awesome ongoing series. I may or may not be writing an extended Amethyst fan fiction of sorts, so
True.
maybe you'll see it someday, folks. But I think you could do some really cool kind of fantasy style storytelling with that. And again, she just kind of shows up. There's the old comics. She'll show up in little tiny stuff, but nothing substantial. And I think that's a mistake. I'm surprised, Dakota, you didn't bring out Christar and say bring Christar back for his own his own series, because I know he's, again, similar to Amethyst, seems like he's cameoing and stuff, but I think it seems like that world is rich enough you could flesh that out. While we're at it, bring back Rom, give Rom his own series again, and take it into space. Maybe that's with my Silver Surfer series. Maybe it's Silver Surfer. It's either Rom or Silver Surfer, but one of them shows up in the other, on and off.
Yeah,
I'd
that
read
could
that.
work. The last one I've got on my list is going to be a Captain Carter. So I just imagine, I think they've done, again, maybe it was like 3 issues or something like that. But I think you could do, because people love Captain America, but you could do just an alternate world. I'm kind of imagining, like, I haven't read the new Ultimate Spider-Mans, but like the older Ultimate Spider-Mans, where you're taking the characters that people know and you're just giving them a slight twist. Kind of even like what we're doing with the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man that's on Disney Plus right now. It's the characters you know, but they're slightly different. So you could take Captain Carter, just do this alternate timeline, what if extended version, and you're kind of getting those similar Captain America stories that we all know,
Right.
but it's Captain Carterized, you know?
Like, what's the Hulk like in this world? What's Tony Stark like?
Right.
Doctor Doom, that kind of stuff. Okay, yeah, I could see that. I know they did. I think they tried to do stuff like that, maybe, but it seemed like it was a lot more like cashing in on the Disney Plus thing,
Right.
rather than like we're actually trying to legitimize this character as her own thing.
And I'd be fine if they like took the Disney Plus as like kind of the jumping off point, and even if it had like that same art, I think would be kind of cool. But then, you know, making it like a serious story. Like, it's not like we're trying to make this like an extension necessarily of the cartoon vibes. Is you can make it serious and everything, but also I don't think you need to make it so serious that like kids aren't gonna like it. But make it just kind of that like fun for everyone, good story type of telling.
I'd go for that. I think one last one we got to throw in there is the Aunt May romance soap opera series.
Yes.
For you fans of of hijinks and romance, check this book out.
That would be kind of cool. I mean, it would, because I mean, I never read the like Mary Jane Loves Spider-Man, but that's the kind of vibe I got from that, was like a comic told from Mary Jane's like a civilian perspective in a superhero world. And if you were doing that with Aunt May style, I think that would be fun. Again, maybe not 1,000 issues, but you could get 50.
Right. It's like the summer crossover event, the Aunt May multiverse. So it goes crashing into the main universe.
Spider-Verse versus Venomverse versus Mayverse.
Versus the Benverse.
Yeah.
Uncle Ben showing up. It's like triggers another Secret Wars event. Just Battle World.
Battle World, but with civilians. Aunt May, Robbie Robertson, J. Jonah Jameson.
Rick Jones has got a giant kingdom. Those are some of our ideas on characters that we'd like to see more or less of. Let us know in the comments if you like any of these ideas for series. If you have any characters that you'd like to see getting more time in their own series, please be liking, sharing, and subscribing. And until next time, as always, stay strong.